This show is brought to you by Loud and Opinionated. What's up, Loud Sports? I am not Paul Rubidoux. I am Jake Williams, and this is a very special segment of the show, mostly because the other two hosts don't know anything about hockey. And the one guy that I know that definitely knows more about hockey than I do, Brent Pentecost. I can't always screw that up because I want to say Pentecost because it works so well.
Yeah. And that is why it's my Twitter and Instagram handle.
It works, man. It works. Yeah, we're talking all about the Stanley Cup playoffs, the best playoffs in all of sports.
Oh, for sure.
Although I will say the NBA playoffs have been very good.
I watched a little bit of it last night, and I will say that, yeah, it did actually, for the first time in a while, it is nice to see something like that going on.
Yeah, especially when Golden State blows a 31-point lead. That's fun.
Well, not only that, like it's finally to the point where there's parity in the league. And
right, with
before,
LeBron being gone.
Was it like 2 years ago where every single higher seed beat the lower seed? Like that, there's no parity in the league at that point. So it's better. It's still basketball, sick league and stuff, you know.
Speaking of parity, the Stanley Cup playoffs. Holy crap. I cannot believe what has happened. Those who don't know Brent, he's a much like I am with Tampa Bay, I love all the teams from Tampa. He's a Pittsburgh guy, Pens fan, diehard Pens fan. So he can share with me my misery. This rarely happens. But both our teams, strong teams, favorites coming into the playoffs, and both are down 3-0 right now.
Well, I mean, Pittsburgh wasn't quite as big of a favorite as Tampa or anything.
Yeah, all right.
The President's Trophy, most wins in the regular season to ever happen. They tied the 96-97 Red Wings.
Yeah. Well, I said this a few weeks ago. I said this is a bad thing for Tampa. You know, as cool as it is to say, oh, yeah, we had the best, we tied for the best record ever in the NHL. It puts a gigantic target on your back, puts a ton of pressure on your team. And I mean, we've seen it before. We saw it with the New England Patriots. We saw it with the Golden State Warriors. Whenever you have one of the best records ever regular season, it hurts you in the playoffs.
Oh, I fully agree. I think the biggest problem that Tampa had so far was this year it's easy to go out in a regular season and win games 6-2 and win games 6-5, stuff like that. Those things don't happen in the playoffs. And I think what's really hurting them right now is defensively. You look at their six defensemen, you're like, wow, they've got solid defense. Like, these are all good. But then you look back, you're like, most of these guys are all offensive-minded defensemen.
Yeah.
The defensive side of things has been really what's hurt them so far. Like, man, it's been kind of crazy to watch.
Before we jump into what's going on with the Pens, we'll talk briefly about the Lightning. Briefly, I'm joking.
Briefly.
I got a lot on my mind. Well, I said it on the last episode of Loud Sports about how I said if Tampa's not careful, they're going to get swept, and I truly believe that because, like you're saying, it is easier in the regular season to beat up on teams and have those big leads. I was reading a Tampa Bay Times article about it, and he said if you're looking for someone to blame, I can't remember the writer. It was a really good article, but he said if you're looking for someone to blame, the list is long. And I think Cooper is getting outcoached. I think after the first period of the game one, that's when I realized Columbus is outcoaching Tampa because they completely let their foot off the gas.
Yeah. Oh, it's so Cooper. I just like it's hard to get like, and I know that most people will always be like, oh, coaching matters all out. It's so much like. There's very few coaches in hockey that are going to change things up for you. As you can see, coaching changes in hockey happen way more often than any other sport that there is. I mean, other than I think maybe basketball happens about the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
Your strategies and the things you do and how you deploy guys, it doesn't do as much. It's one of the biggest reasons why I don't think This one here, I think Torts. I don't know that Torts is really out coaching Cooper. I think that right now the Blue Jackets were hitting a stride to end the season, and they've just stayed on that same thing. Tampa,
Yeah,
I don't think Tampa's working hard enough. I just don't think that they have the drive. Like it's kind of odd to see, but yeah, like it's different. Like it just doesn't seem to me as if they're out there with the same drive and like force that they had at the start of the year.
yeah, and I think that comes with the overconfidence of being the best team in the league. When you win 62 games, you're gonna have a huge chip on your shoulder and a huge you're gonna feel very confident, you know. And I agree. I think it's multiple factors. I think Cooper got out coached, and I think it also comes up with uh, effort. I agree 100%. You're seeing, especially in game one, how much the Blue Jackets want this more than Tampa. Because to me, it looks like, based on what I've seen, they just think, well, we had the best record in the league. We're going to skate right into the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And it's clearly not the case. And it's overconfidence. And like you're saying about the regular season, there's I again using this article, he mentioned that they are relying too much on their strengths of the regular season. And I completely agree with that. You cannot rely on your strengths of the regular season. Yes, you can use them. That's what got you there. But, like his great example was the power play. Tampa was devastating on the power play in this regular season. Not so much in the postseason because I think refs let a little bit more stuff go.
You always eat the whistles in the playoffs. This happens. It's how it goes.
Right. You got to let them play.
And they have done that a lot. And that's one thing like it was always a big problem for Pittsburgh prior to like 2016, 2017, like 11, 12, 13, 14. Those years for Pittsburgh, that was kind of one of their biggest problems they had. They would always go out, dominate through the regular season, be one of the top teams every single year. You go into the playoffs, and all of a sudden, tighter checking, harder hitting, a lot less mistakes are being made. And when those mistakes aren't being made, they weren't putting, the puck into the back of the net. And that's kind of what you're seeing now. Like they're not getting the extra opportunities with the man advantage, and they're not playing as efficiently in the 5-on-5 game.
Yeah. And I think they're playing too much in their own zone. The Blue Jackets are playing so much. There's, like you're saying, there's just not a lot of effort. The Blue Jackets are so incredibly aggressive in this series, and they are just.
Has been stupid so far.
Yeah, and I'm not putting it on Vasi. I'm really not, because I think he's still a very good goaltender. I just think he's been put in very tough situations because Tampa has not been playing well. They've been getting dominated. And when a team plays that much in your zone, they are bound to put the puck in the net. It's going to happen. And I don't know if I honestly think Tampa gets swept. I don't see them winning tonight. And I think this is going to be a huge learning moment for Cooper because he signed an extension, and I think it was the right call. I don't think Cooper's a bad coach. I think Cooper has completely changed the mentality and atmosphere in Tampa. This is a almost consistent playoff team, and they're still a very good team. It's just they got overconfident.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. Like it's been like if you look at his stats right now, I mean, for Vazzy especially, like I mean, he's not doing terrible. Actually, no, yeah, it's pretty bad. He's got an 866 save percentage so far, so it's not super good. But
Well,
like,
I mean, look,
time, like, how many of those are because he isn't, he's like hung out to dry or he gets stuck. Like, I mean, that first game, the rocket that Seth Jones scores to get the game winner, like there was zero movement. Like everybody was dead in their boots on the ice for Tampa.
Well, and you got to think that the thing that gets me too is I remember Friday watching, and I saw it was 4-1, and or yeah, no, it was 4-1.
Yeah,
and it's same situation where he goes one way, the puck goes another way because there was no defenseman there to help him. You know,
Well,
there
there's
was
nobody out there to help him. He's
nobody
like,
to
freaking
nobody to block a shot. And I will always root for them. And if they win and they somehow pull off a miraculous comeback and win this game in 7, then this should be a reminder to them. This should be something like, okay, Blue Jackets have shown our kryptonite. They've shown the chink in the armor. They have to stay focused and hope and pray that they don't have play as bad as they have. But
oh, for sure. Well,
chances are very, very slim.
Freaking absolutely insane. Like 9-4 save percentage. I mean, he's only allowed 5 goals the entire time. Like it's
Bob is playing insane.
Vazzy's only seen 82 shots so far in the 3 games, which is not a terrible amount, but he's allowed 11 of them in. So it's kind of the exact opposite. Like both of those goalies are playing well. Like for what I mean is like, so for Pittsburgh, they're facing Robin Leonard's been standing on his damn head. Like it's stupid how some of the like saves he's made, and honestly, also as Pittsburgh alluded to earlier, like some people like to call it puck luck, and they're getting 0 of it at this point. Like they're not getting the bounces, they're not getting, but also at the same time, you have to create your own at some point. Like if you're not getting it, you've got to work harder and try and find ways to score to win. Pittsburgh's doing 0 of that. They look just absolutely dead.
Let me ask you this, because I have no confidence. I think Tampa's going to get swept. I think they're going to lose tonight. Do you have any confidence in the Pens tonight?
I do. I think they're going to be able to pull off one win. I think Murray has played better than what his stat line says. I mean, he's 902 save percentage, but the defensive play by Pittsburgh has been atrocious. The first game, I don't think I've seen Brian Dumoulin flub and make mistakes more than 3 or 4 times this season. He had 3 of them in that game alone. Like Letang went from Norris Trophy candidate this year to now he's playing out of wits. It just doesn't make any sense. Like I think the thing that's shocked me so far with Pittsburgh is how bad the defensive play has been. Like their defensemen have been one of their stronger points to end the season, and now it's just like they don't know how to skate. They don't know how to keep their gaps. They don't keep anything. Like it's just they're letting New York kind of control the game themselves, and it's kind of weird because that's not usually how it's not how Pittsburgh's played at all this year.
Yeah, and that's I agree. That's what surprised me as well because the Pens have always been a very aggressive team, and it's almost a similar situation. I feel like the Islanders are out there to prove something, and I think they're playing at a different level. I'm not saying it's as bad as Tampa's situation with Pittsburgh, but you're definitely seeing the Islanders they got a chip on their shoulder, and I also think it's great coaching too.
Yeah, Trotz has absolutely been phenomenal coaching wise, but it also, like I said, it goes down to this. Like, look at Robin Leonard and how he's played. Like he stole game 2 for him, and probably game 1 at that. It goes to overtime off of a weird shot that Schultz gets from the top of the circle on the left hand side, and they go in and Leonard makes like 3 big saves in overtime before it goes back down the ice, and Eberle ends up scoring the game winner in OT for game 1. Like it's been absolutely astonishing to see how good he has played compared to what he was in Buffalo last year. Like at this point, like you have to look at him and go, if that dude isn't in the talks to win the Vezina, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, obviously Vasilevsky has a pretty good shot at that this year with how many wins they have, but man, Leonard, the Islanders have like one over 55-point scorer on their team, and they took second in the Metro. Like they're relying on defense and goaltending, and it's worked. So,
Tavares, who?
Yeah, right. Like at this point, yeah. Like you have to look at it and go, man, they probably won out on that at this point. Yeah, Barzell, like he had a somewhat down year, but he's learning how to play 2-way hockey, and he started to do that extremely well with Trotz as his coach. Kid, like you give him the chance. That kid's going to be a really good player both ways.
Yeah. After that, I was first of all, I was just shocked by that trade because I thought they were going to do whatever they could to keep him there as long as possible.
He didn't trade. He signed. He just walked. There's no
Right,
trade.
right. Um,
He just straight up walked away,
and I think that's what's
everybody thought,
surprising.
everybody thought that they were going to trade him last year at the break because or the deadline just because he'd get something for what's going to be an $11 million superstar, and they didn't get any offers they wanted, and they had a chance to possibly make the playoffs to end the year, and decided against it. Like just
Yeah,
said, we're going to keep him and we're going to roll him. We'll just try and re-sign him, and hopefully he'll stay. And he kind of basically said, "No, I'm going to go to my hometown team and team I wanted to play for in Toronto." And
that's the surprising thing to me is I don't think anybody would have predicted that. Anybody or like I honestly thought he was going to play there and end his career there. I did not. And you're right. I was thinking of last season they were talking trade, but yeah, Islanders have really caught me by surprise. And I, on the last episode of Loud Sports, I talked about how I said, the Blue Jackets they barely got in here, whatever. That's yes, they're an eighth seed, but they're a very good eighth seed, and
they
they
barely got in, but the the playoff chase and everything at the end of the year, man, that was a rough one to go. Like there were so many good teams, and
yeah.
like Columbus was only down where they were because they didn't gel right away with all the trades, getting Duchesne and Zingle and a few of these other guys in. Like they didn't gel, and then once that team gelled, like look at their last 7 games, they just absolutely dominated to make their way into the playoffs. Like they crushed who they had to beat. They played against teams that they were going up against in the chase, in like Montreal, and they did what they needed to do, man.
Um, so let me ask you this, and then I'll answer after you give yours. What do you think the Pens are gonna have to do to get the win and get back in, like turn this around and hopefully get to a game 7?
Uh, First line they have to score, and I honestly the thing that's frustrated me from the standpoint, like obviously I'm nobody. I'm just this dude loves hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Holman's coaching decisions kind of surprised the shit out of me this year. Teddy Bluger is a kid that is a young center, great on the penalty kill. Just all around. I mean, his motor is always going, and they keep sitting him for a guy like Dominic Simone, who potential is there, but he hasn't been able to do anything. Like game 3, they put him back up on the top line with Crosby and Gensel, and in the first period, game's 2-1, and all he has to do is tap the freaking puck in, and he can't even get his stick on it. Like, there's nobody there, and he can't even get his stick on it, but yet that's who you have sitting on the first line. Like, sit Simone, play Teddy, and have him. You have a two-way guy that can play penalty kill. Like, you've got Brian Rust sitting on the fourth line right now. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think for Tampa to hope to get to a game 7, I think they have to come out and punch the Blue Jackets in the mouth. They have to start fast. They have to be aggressive, and somebody has to step up. Stamkos, I believe they got Cooch back. Yeah, he was suspended one game. Yeah, they got Cooch back. One of your best scorers, get him back involved, get him into the game plan. And I understand that they have injuries and they're not full strength that that they had throughout the season, but somebody has to step up. And where the hell has Steven Stamkos been? He's been your franchise star. Where has he been in the playoffs? They got to get him. He's got to get involved. He's somebody. Somebody has to step up and put the puck in the net.
People, just a matter of getting them to put the puck in. Like that's another thing that Pittsburgh's had a problem with. I don't understand some of the coaching decisions. I get trying to spread your lines out and stuff, but like, why aren't they going back to the lightning in a bottle they had with Gensel, Crosby, and McCann on the first line? Like, that was phenomenal. Or even just fucking put Simone on the fourth line and put Rust back up higher into the top 6. Like, good Lord, like Rust is not gonna he's better than playing on the fourth line right now. And honestly, like their idea to try and bring Matt Cullen back hasn't really worked as well as they expected. Still a good face-off guy, still decent on the penalty kill, but he's not bringing much to the table offensively. And that hurts you when your fourth line isn't doing anything. You can't roll 4 lines. So
Yeah, like I said, we're both holding out hope, but I think we're in the 5 stages of grief. I think we're acceptance at this
we're
point.
at acceptance, yeah, right now.
It would be an amazing surprise if they could win this game, bring it back to Tampa, and try and make a run for Game 7. But I know deep down that it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, this isn't a series where you're down 3-0, but you've had like 3 close calls or something like that. Like for Pittsburgh, even at that, like I mean, the only game it was somewhat close is the first one. Like
Mm-hmm.
they haven't been able to stay into the game for any of the others. Like
Tampa had a shot to win Game 3, but Columbus got an empty netter, and that's kind of what just was the nail in the coffin. But
yeah,
yeah, it looks bleak for me. But you know what? I'm gonna keep watching the playoffs because they're still fun to watch.
yeah, we can watch somebody possibly get murdered in the Toronto Boston series because that's about where that's going at this point.
Yeah, that it's getting excessively violent and a
Well,
lot of fights.
this is one of the points where you're like, wow, like what is going on? Like they're eating their whistles hard, but like also one of the most selfish moves you could ever make was what Najim Kadri did. Like I get being pissed off about to Jake DeBrus for the hit into the stanchion on the end of the boards there because that's what started it all. But to go in and literally try and cross check a dude in the face, like I
Yeah,
thought maybe he deserved more than just getting the series suspension. I think maybe he should have been done for the rest of the playoffs, even if they happen to make it through. Uh,
yeah. Is it just me, or do the playoffs seem a lot chippier in this season? Because I mean, you had Cooch get suspended for his dirty hit that was uncalled for, and
which
Ovet.
surprised me that it was only one game because I mean, granted, he doesn't have the name recognition or do stupid stuff like Nazem Kadri does. Because that was the same hit that Nazem Kadri did last year. That
Mhm.
got Kadri 2 games. So,
Yeah, I was kind of surprised there was only one as well. But even Ovechkin's dropping gloves and beating up on people.
dude, that was bad. I mean, he fed Svechnikov his lunch. Like a 19-year-old kid decides to go up against his idol from growing up and just gets absolutely done. Now, granted, he didn't have a chance. Like he's just way smaller than Ovechkin. Ovechkin's a monster, but
Yeah, it is kind of funny to think about. Like, never meet your heroes because they might just beat the crap out of you on
yeah,
live
right.
TV.
Somebody like already like went and did the whole wiki troll thing and edited his page to say death by Alexander Ovechkin.
I've never seen such a one-sided beatdown, man. That was
The thing
woo.
is, it wasn't even that one sided to be honest with you. He held his own at the start, and then it was just that one punch that lands right on his jaw, and it was bye bye. I mean, a 240-pound man decides to put all of his power into a punch like that. You're probably not gonna not gonna stay awake.
Yeah. Yeah, I am a little surprised, especially because you don't want to fight in the playoffs. That's the last place you want to have fights. Uh,
Well, not only that, but like you're taking yourself off the ice for 5 minutes at least at that point, and then two, you have to look at it as a uh, what happens if he breaks his hand on his head? Like you're
right.
punching, you miss, you smash your hand into his helmet instead. Now your hand's broke. What are you gonna do? Like that's the selfish part of getting into a fight in the playoffs. Like
Yeah, and like you could risk suspensions, and it's just so surprising to me. So right now, who do you think? Still, we're a little over, well, about halfway through round one of the playoffs. Right now, who do you think is your dark horse to win the cup? At least get to the finals, not necessarily win the cup, but get to the finals.
right now, it's honestly the Avalanche. Like if you watch that, I don't know if you got to watch any of that game last night, but
It was
my
6-2, wasn't it?
you won. Yeah, they won. Yeah, 6-2. But like the Avalanche flipped a switch in game two. Like game one, Mike Smith absolutely lights out, brick wall. Game two, the Avs started playing their game. They're making Calgary play their game also. Like, and then Grubauer's been playing phenomenal in net form too. Like that trade might go down as a solid little setup for them. Then they bring in the Hobie Baker Awards finalist or winner this year, and Cole McCarr, and that he comes in, scores his first goal. NHL debut in a playoff game and scores his first goal and put the Avs up 3-0 in the first period. Like if they can keep that lightning in a bottle that they found now, that's going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tough team to get out for sure. And the other series in the Western Conference are kind of knockdown, drag out, like beat the shit out of each other series. This Flames Abs game has been more speed, so it's not really beating the crap out of each other. And I mean, look at Nashville, Dallas; those dudes are beating the hell out of each other. The Sharks versus Vegas. That's been just they're just absolutely killing each other. Like
I
Vander
think
Kane and Ryan Reeves drop the gloves. Thornton tries to take a dude's nose off and gets suspended for a game. Like
I think for me, I think it'd probably be the Golden Knights, or I think my dark horse. And yeah, I hate to do the whole thing of like, because it's always different with hockey, but just from what I've seen from last year and how they played last year, and how they're playing now, I think Vegas might sneak their way to the final, and I would be all for that. I like that Vegas has played well. The first 2 years in the league, they've played as well as they have. I would say, based on what I've seen with Columbus, it's probably Columbus too, to be honest.
well, yeah, Columbus is a real like shot, but at the same time, like I don't really consider them a dark horse. Like I looked at them going into the playoffs, like that's going to be a tough out. Like
After February, and they kind of reshaped that team, that's I think when they really started turning heads. And you're right, it didn't really start getting clicking until later. But I mean, what better way to actually have the chemistry that you need late in the season, get the momentum going into the playoffs like they did.
oh yeah, I'm excited for what's going to happen after tonight's games. Like I'm excited more because I want to see Tampa win. I want to see Pittsburgh win just to extend the series, see what could happen. But man, like you look at the other one, you go to the Western Conference, and those series are they've been brutal. I feel like it's kind of going through the same thing that has happened the last 2 years or 3 years at that. Western Conference has been such a battle to get out of that they don't have anything left in the finals.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I think the East, and of course, this is probably biased from two guys that have teams in the East, but I've always felt like the East has been the better conference. Now, there obviously is arguments for the West, but it just, for me, and you're right, it has been a little bit more parity on the West side, but the East, it's just always been, they're so good. And the fan in me definitely wants Tampa to win, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But the other side, the other just fan of the playoffs and fans of hockey, I kind of would be okay with the Blue Jackets winning, because it's like, oh shit, the whole thing's changed. We flipped the script on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest reasons why the East is stronger and better, but it's starting to change a little bit, is you look the East changed the way you play NHL hockey different than what the Western Conference. The Western Conference was still this rough tumble, like we're going to be big, we're going to hit you, and that's how we're going to win games. Outside, I mean, even Chicago, when they went through their 3 and 6 years, they won the Western Conference off of speed more than they did anything else. They had great puck moving defensemen. They weren't out there to pound you.
That's how they beat Tampa.
Well, yeah, but people on the Western side, the Western Conference are always like, "Oh, if we hit you, it's great." Like all it matters to me when you talk about hits and you led the game in hits. It doesn't matter to me, man. It just means you don't have the puck because you're hitting somebody. It means you don't have the puck. You have no puck.
Right.
Like that doesn't do anything for you.
Where I've noticed
it's great to have those big hits and stuff and like be a physical team, but man, that only goes so far. Like look at last night with Carolina and Washington. Carolina goes up early, and Washington tried to play the physical game, and it didn't work. Like Wilson's out there doing Wilson things, garbage can Tom Wilson. It's just you're seeing a lot of these Western Conference teams start to realize you've got to go with speed, not just power.
Hmm.
St. Louis realized it finally. They started getting rid of some of their big rough and tumble guys, and they brought in a Ryan O'Reilly, and they bring in a couple other guys that can help them score.
That's another team that I could see going far too.
It,
The
it all
Blues.
matters with Jordan Bennington. If that kid can stay hot, that's perfect. But he hasn't been. He's got a sub 900 save percentage right now, and they actually have a 2-1 lead. So as
Yeah,
long as he can keep his head straight, he's young, he's new, he's a rookie. You could pull it off, but he as soon as that kid starts to question himself and his confidence starts to lack, they're in some trouble.
I think I would agree with you too with the difference between the East and the West because I mean the East you have defensemen being some of your top scorers and you have they're all about puck movement and getting in the net and everybody's dangerous. Everybody can score at any time. That kind of mentality, and that's what's worked for Tampa the last few years. That's
Oh,
what's
for sure.
gotten Tampa into the playoffs so many times and gotten them far is that kind of mentality.
Oh yeah.
And same could very easily be said about Pittsburgh or really any team in the East. So let's wrap it up here. What do you think? Who do you think for tonight's matchups? What is on the schedule? Let's see. Tampa and Columbus, Pittsburgh and is the Islanders maybe? Are they're playing tonight?
Yeah, Pittsburgh Islanders, Tampa, Columbus, Jets, Blues, Sharks, Golden Knights tonight.
Okay. We'll start with the West.
All right.
I have the Golden Knights winning.
I think that the Sharks come out and get this one, and it ends up being a 2-2 series. This has been it's been a real battle of a series so far, but I just think that it's going to be evened up. I think this one goes 7 games, anyways. So
Yeah, I could very easily see this one going 7 games.
and the Sharks, yes, you're without Thornton tonight, but Thornton's not as much of a like he's still in the locker room. He just has to sit out, so his locker room presence is better than his play lately, anyways. So
Yeah.
I think that one. I do think that one ends up being a Sharks win tonight. He's been bad too. He hasn't even been very good himself. So.
It's gonna be Jets, Blues. I'll have you go first this time.
I think the Jets end up getting this one tied back up. They dropped the first 2 to the Blues, and I don't think that they're like. There's no way that this ends up being a 3-1. Winnipeg's too good. They've got too many weapons on the offensive side. I they're going to end up taking this. I think it's going to be 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Blues winning. Like I said, I think they're a team that I think is going to go far in the playoffs, and I think it'll be a close game. But yeah, I got the Blues in this one.
All right.
All right, now it's the moment of truth. We're going to talk about our teams. I've said it, and it sucks, and I hate to do this, but I think Tampa loses and gets swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets.
I think they come out with a fire underneath their ass in this game and at least get one. I don't think this team. There's too much heart on it for them to just give up and not do it.
I honestly pray to the hockey gods that you're right. I really do. People might think I'm coming off as when I said, well, I kind of want to see Columbus win. No, I don't actually want to see Columbus win. I'm a fan of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I want them to win this game, but I don't know. I just don't have a lot of confidence after 3 games. And maybe you're right. Maybe they take my advice. I mean, I'm just a guy in an apartment somewhere with a podcast, but maybe they'll take my advice and come out with fire and grit and become aggressive and say, okay, you know what? We cannot be the laughing stock of the NHL because it's going to be a year's worth of memes. We can't let that happen.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Pens, Islanders. What's going to happen?
I honestly think that the Islanders have Pittsburgh's number right now. I don't think that they're going to have any confidence coming in, and I think the Islanders end up winning this game like 4-1.
That's so hilarious that we both bet against our teams.
Well, about how it's been, and things don't normally just change all of a sudden. And if you've watched any of these games, like man, Pittsburgh just looked so out of sorts defensively. They have zero puck possession. They're getting zero luck in the
Mm-hmm.
offensive zone. I mean, the first game, Phil Kessel ended up hitting the post, I think, 3 times, missed a wide open cage. Like this, the stuff that you're like, wow, you're really not meant to win right now. Like you're watching these things happen. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean that's kind of where I felt with Tampa. I mean, after other than the first period of game one, they have not looked like the same team. They
yeah,
just have not. Well, that is the first edition of the Puck drops here for Loud Sports. I don't know if this will be an every Tuesday thing. I don't know how frequently we'll do this, but
yeah,
we have to talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's the best playoffs in sports, and
totally agree.
it's gonna be something fun. Yeah, I'm gonna put this up right away, but maybe future editions of the Puck drops here, we will bake it into the regular episode of Loud Sports. Thank you so much for listening to this. Hopefully we get some hockey fans out there. I don't know what do you call hockey fans really, because you can't
Nuts. That's just
nuts.
fun.
Well, hopefully more people come to the show and enjoy it, and who knows, maybe someday you and I will do a hockey show someday. Who knows?
Someday.
But yeah, follow us on Twitter at Loud Sports Pod. Follow Loud and Opinionated on Twitter, Loud Opinionated. Like us on Facebook, Loud and Opinionated. And Brent, I'm glad you came back. I think this is like the fourth time you've been on Loud and Opinionated,
Yeah,
and you actually wrote an article for
I did.
the Steelers.
About the Steelers and the terrible decisions that they've
If
made.
the Pens lose and the Lightning lose, both of us should probably write analysis of the season of what
Yeah.
we thought. So yeah, that'll definitely be around the corner. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll catch up with you somewhere down the road.